To this week's episode of the Back in Shape podcast. Today we're going to be talking all about blood pressure. A little bit of a strange one for the Back in Shape podcast, but the reason being is last week one of our members reached out to us before our live stream and was basically telling us about the story of them going to their GP, regular checkup, but finding out, they're going through a bit of stress and their blood pressure was actually really maintaining very, very well. It was very, very good reading. The GP was really happy, and it kind of spurred us on because both Lara and I, we know the benefits of exercise. We know the benefits that our members will have from getting back in shape, getting back into exercise, getting back into that regimented, having exercise as part of your life, just the same way brushing your teeth is every single day. It's something that we do, and the benefits to us, are wide-reaching, and blood pressure improvements is just one of those. But quite often, or bringing this up, with our members, it kind of made us realize, not everyone's really aware of these things, because it kind of, sometimes when members have mentioned it to us in the past, specifically blood pressure or weight loss, it's kind of like it's a surprise, and it really shouldn't be. And I think when it comes to blood pressure, it really is something that, especially for a lot of people, it's something that it's a foregone conclusion. I'm going to get high blood pressure. When it comes around, I'm going to, take some medications and go from there. And really, there's not an empowering message, it seems, that you, whatever age you are, can have some impact, some significant impact on your personal levels of blood pressure. Now, I've made a few notes on today's live stream. So if you are watching on today's podcast, and if you are watching, you will see me glance down at those, because there's a lot of things to talk about here. Now, first and foremost, this is obviously much more relevant to those of you that are in our Back in Shape program or trying to fix your back pain. And I thought I'd start off by saying, some of the factors of back pain are not going to help blood pressure, period. And that is, a lot of people, when they come to start working with us in the Back in Shape program, they've maybe had back pain for a long period of time. They've seen lots of different people, maybe they've had lots of treatments, lots of things haven't worked, and maybe they're not doing the things that they like to do, and that's been the case for a long period of time. Participation in social, looking after the family, all these other sorts of things can affect you and get you down. So not only we've got pain, we've got lower levels of activity, we've got a significant component, which is stress, which is something not talked about very much, but all of these things can have impact on our blood pressure or the state of our cardiovascular system. Now, there are a whole host of other things. You've got genetic factors, you've got family history, you've got all these other sorts of things, hydration, etc., that can have both short-term and more long-term trend effects on our blood pressure. But those that do suffer with more chronic levels of back pain can really find that as you start to come out of that, real improvements can be made. So I thought I'm going to cover for today's podcast just some of the mechanisms that could really be helping you improve your blood pressure. And it's important to remember, what is blood pressure? It's a measure of the pressure within our circulatory system. It's measuring the health of our circulatory system, the strain it's under. For example, if our arteries are a little bit more stiff and rigid because we haven't looked after ourselves for a long period of time, and maybe some of these habits have kicked in, high levels of stress, inactivity, poor diet, lifestyle, etc., then it's going to show up as being a little bit more unhealthy. But aside from medications, we can start making changes. So one of the very first things is, if you are not in pain, as you start to do regular exercise and your body feels better, it functions better, you are not in as much pain every single day, you will start to make, or have the capacity to make improvements. Alongside that, as you feel better, your levels of participation in the things that you couldn't do before, being able to go to work even, simple things like getting up and down off the toilet seat, become normal again. And both of those things combined with one another have a result of decreasing your levels of stress on a day-to-day basis. That is a very, very large factor that's often unseen. So you can see that already through the process of doing physical exercise on a regular basis and making improvements in our skeletal structure and our ability to use our body, we're doing things that are going to reduce our levels of stress and therefore have a positive impact on our blood pressure. The second thing is that you're engaging in a series of exercises. You're making steady, slow to start with, improvements in your level of physical fitness and your musculoskeletal system as you're doing that exercise. It's training your circulatory system to provide nutrition to the muscles, to provide oxygenation to the muscles, and therefore we're working that circulatory system. And over time, it's going to have an impact, and that is going to be for the better. It's going to trigger your body to make adaptations, and therefore that itself is going to also improve your blood pressure or improve the health of your circulatory system. Now, it's important to note, any one-off stimulation, any one-off event, your body's smart. It knows what's going on. So if you have one great exercise or 1 week of exercise, your body's going to kind of start to be questioning, hey, is this something that's new? Is this a one-off, or are we needing to do this on a daily basis? Are we needing to start to do this? So for example, if all of a sudden you have a one-off day and you have to walk a mile to work, 2, 3, 4, 5 miles to work, your body might be thinking, hey, am I going to have to walk that far? Okay, well, if that starts to become a regular journey that you're making, you might invest in a bicycle, you might invest in a car, you might divert resources to make that activity that is now part of your life a easier process. And just the same way in your body, if it's a one-off walk for a long distance, then your body's not going to want to invest resources. But if you start doing those exercises regularly, your body's going to start to switch on and say, hey, this is the new status quo. I need to be doing this, and I need to facilitate this effective exercise on a daily basis. So I'm going to start to make changes to my hormone levels. I'm going to start to make changes to my body composition. I'm going to start making changes to the health of my heart, my circulatory system, my muscles, my joints, my tendons, everything to help the recovery process. So not only is your improved circulatory health going to help that in of itself, but it's also going to improve your capacity for healing. As your cardiac efficiency starts to improve, and blood pressure being a measure of that, you're also going to have a greater ability to divert resources and nutrients to injuries, to areas that are injured, i.e., for many of you, your lower back, the injury to that disc, etc. That is going to be a significant benefit for the long term. Now, the tertiary thing there, the things that start to come a little bit later on down the line, is that when you're doing this, this is more so true for our members, and maybe a reason why when you just pick up an exercise program on your own, you don't stick to it as well, and therefore you don't get some of these results. But when you're part of a community and you're working out every so often with other people, maybe you're not specifically working out with them, but for example, it's July right now, 2022, and we're doing our live workouts, and there is a sense of community within our membership. People turning up every week. Maybe they don't catch it live at the time, but they catch it an hour later or half an hour later to join us every single week for the live workouts. And that is a positive sense. You're seeing other people doing the same. It brings us together as a community, even if it's through the internet, and helps us with those feelings of satisfaction, those feelings of purpose, if you will. And it just makes you feel good. Whereas the very opposite to that, when you have particularly severe back pain, and when many members come to us, there's that deep feeling of isolation. I can't participate in the social structure in the same way in which I would like to, and that again leads into stress, leads into a lack of wanting to do anything, and therefore we get ourselves caught in this rut. So that feeling of community when you are partaking in some sort of exercise regularly with others can be really, really positive. And again, another boon. We're talking about these things as if, it's not like a medication where, your doctor gives you this pill and all of a sudden your blood pressure comes down by 15 points or whatever the case may be. Those are just random numbers, by the way. These things are little things, but when you do them regularly, you have the personal control to control things like blood pressure, which can be, as I mentioned earlier on, such a issue for many people as they get older. Up here, more so to start with before it's really an issue in here. Now, the final thing that I wanted to touch on, one of the final benefits, and of course there are going to be others as well, but specifically referencing blood pressure, is going to be decreases in body mass. Loss of excess fat, unwanted fat. As you're doing these regular activities and you're making them part and parcel of your daily life, and we've had members that have been with us for a long period of time, they are, consistently doing their exercise 3, 4, 5 times a week, sometimes more. Every single week, week in, week out. Sure, you have little times off and then back on again. Life does happen from here, from time to time, but you're getting that momentum, and you're finding that a lot of members, you get a little bit of weight loss too, a little bit of fat loss. All of a sudden, someone will pop into the group on Facebook and say, hey, I've lost a little bit of weight. Didn't expect that to happen, and it's these sorts of things that are really positive. Now, the drop in your body mass, i.e. excess fat, not muscle tissue, that shouldn't be happening, but drop in excess fat is going to only decrease the further strain on your heart and have another positive impact on, if we're talking about blood pressure for a synonymous measure of your heart health, then it's going to have an impact there, a positive impact there. And as you're getting fitter, it's kind of like a double whammy. Your heart's conditioned to work with, let's say 100 kilo body and moving that thing around the place. And then as your weight drops and you're fitter, it's kind of like you're also fitter and you're having to carry less, so you can do even more. There's a nice phrase that I can't remember where I heard it, but the more you do, the more you can do. And that really is something that you see very, very clearly borne out in our group, where people are doing more and able to do more out and about, from walking up and down the various mountainous structures of the UK to other things, going out to events, etc., spending hours on the feet and really enjoying themselves. That is really what it is all about. But some of these objective health markers do sometimes come out, and it's really interesting and nice to share them with you guys, our community. So if you are someone that is watching this and you're like, hey, my blood pressure may be a little bit high, maybe I've seen the GP a couple of times, it's there, consider just doing some form of regular physical exercise. You need to exert yourself. Making the statement of, hey, I go out and I do my garden and I go to work and I come back and I do some chores and I'm exhausted by the end of the day, that is not sufficient. Okay, that's very, very important misconception, that just because I'm busy and tired at the end of the day, you probably aren't reaching significant levels of intensity in that one session if you're just getting tired all the day. But fundamentally, it's if you are doing the right sort of exercises, you have control over these measures and the direction in which they can go. It is a big ship, so it requires consistency to turn that blood pressure measure, seeing as we're talking about that, or that body weight in one direction or the other. But if you're consistent, you do have control, and just start doing something routinely. And there's no better way than to do it as part of a group. So I'll close this with, try and get involved in doing some regular exercise. Be consistent, because you don't see results after 1 or 2 days. You need to do it consistently to tell your body that this is the new way we're going to do things, and you better get ready to be able to allow me to do these things on a daily basis. Results will come. And the final thing is, this is part of our Sunday publication. Every Sunday we put out these podcasts. We put out a full newsletter on our website, and you can, if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening to this on podcast, in the show notes will be a link to this week's full article where we've got that. We've also got some practical tips there, 3 tips that you can use immediately to really start taking control of these things and move forward. So you can find the link in the show notes, and also subscribe to the free newsletter, which we put out every week, which will link to the podcast, the latest episode of the podcast, and the website, and all the other various resources. Hopefully you found this one helpful, a little bit different, I know, but helpful hopefully nonetheless. And we will see you in the next episode of the Back in Shape podcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.